The hook. The test begins. The palace of Lady Arathia, the alien mistress, was unlike any place a human had ever walked. Walls shimmered with living crystals, floors glowed faintly under each step, and silent drones floated through the halls like watchful ghosts. It was a place built on power and wealth, where even the smallest gem lying in a corner could buy an entire planet. And yet, in this palace filled with treasures beyond imagination, one human stood guard with nothing but a blade at his side. His name was Daniel. To most, he was just a bodyguard, a quiet shadow who followed the alien mistress wherever she went. But to Lady Arathia, he was an experiment. She did not believe in human loyalty. She had seen empires rise and fall, seen soldiers betray masters for coins, seen mercenaries abandon oaths for promises of gold. And now, she wondered, was this human any different? Or was he just another greedy creature, hiding his hunger behind a mask of discipline? So she planned a test. One evening, when the twin moons cast silver light through the tall windows of her palace, Arathia gave an order. She commanded her servants to place her greatest treasures in the open hall, unguarded, unsealed, unprotected, golden chalices from dying worlds, radiant jewels that pulsed with inner light, rare artifacts humming with ancient power, riches that could tempt even the noblest heart. She made sure they glittered under the soft glow of crystal lamps, each piece calling silently to whoever passed by. Then she gave her human guard the assignment. Daniel was to patrol that hall alone for the night. No drones, no other guards, just him and the treasures of 1,000 conquered worlds. Arathia herself hid in the shadows, behind a wall of shifting glass, where she could watch every move he made. The air was still, heavy with silence, broken only by the distant hum of the palace engines. She folded her arms, her sharp eyes glowing faintly. "Let us see what humans are truly made of," she whispered. Daniel walked slowly into the hall, his boots echoing softly against the crystal floor. His eyes flickered to the treasures for only a moment before scanning the empty corridors. He moved like a soldier, calm, measured, always alert. The jewels sparkled, the golden chalices shone like fire, and yet he never reached out. His hand stayed firmly on the hilt of his blade, his gaze always shifting to shadows and doors. Still, temptation was everywhere. As he passed a pedestal, the largest diamond in the galaxy glowed brightly, casting dancing lights across his face. For a second, he stopped. His reflection sparkled in the surface of the gem, his human eyes meeting the endless promise of wealth. Arathia leaned forward, her heart quickening. Would he take it? Would he falter like all the others? But Daniel only adjusted his stance, then turned away. Strange place to leave something so valuable, he muttered softly, shaking his head. His voice carried no greed, only caution. Minutes turned into hours. Every step he took was a battle against suspicion. Arathia had designed this hall as a trap not just of wealth but of the mind. The gems seemed to shimmer louder the longer one looked. The golden relics almost whispered. The glowing orbs hummed like voices, promising power, promising freedom. She had seen alien guards fall to their knees, clawing desperately at treasures unable to resist. But the human? He kept walking, yet Arathia was not convinced. She thought, he resists because he knows I watch. But what if he believed he was alone? So she pressed a hidden command. The shifting glass wall darkened, and the cameras went silent. To Daniel, it now looked like the hall was his and his alone. No eyes, no witnesses, no judgment. He stopped once more near a table of artifacts. Slowly he reached toward a golden crown, its edges sharp, its jewels burning with alien fire. Arathia's eyes narrowed in the darkness, her claws tapped against the crystal wall. This was the moment. Would his human weakness show? But Daniel didn't lift the crown. He only touched the edge of the table, leaning closer to examine it. Then he sighed. If this were Earth, he murmured, a thing like this wouldn't last an hour left in the open. Strange how trust works here. He shook his head, then continued his patrol. Arathia felt a spark of surprise. There had been no hesitation in his words. No longing, no hunger. Only an odd sense of duty. It unsettled her. For centuries, she had believed loyalty could be bought or broken. But here was a human, surrounded by riches beyond dreams, and he looked at them as if they were nothing more than decorations. The night grew colder. The hall stretched endless and silent. Daniel's steps were steady, his eyes sharper than ever, as if the more treasures surrounded him, the more determined he became to guard them. He didn't guard for himself, he guarded for her. Hidden in the shadows, Lady Arathia leaned back, her mind racing. The test had only begun, but already something about this human felt different. And for the first time in many years, the alien mistress felt not certainty but doubt. The temptation, eyes of suspicion. The palace was silent the next evening, but Lady Arathia's mind was not. She had watched her human guard pass the first trial, but doubt lingered. Perhaps he resisted because he knew the mistress was near. Perhaps humans could act loyal while eyes were on them. But what about when whispers filled the air? What about when temptation grew louder? So she decided to turn the test into a storm. She summoned her servants, slender alien beings with crystal masks and hushed voices. She gave them one command: spread rumors. Let the guard hear that he could take the treasures. Let him believe there would be no punishment. Let temptation walk beside him like a shadow. The whispers began the moment Daniel entered the palace. Halls. Strange, isn't it? One servant muttered as she polished a silver urn. The mistress leaves all her wealth unguarded. If I were human, I'd be gone by now, rich forever. Another servant smirked as Daniel passed. They say the mistress doesn't punish humans the same way. He could take what he likes and she'd forgive him. The words dripped like poison. They echoed through the crystal halls, sinking into the silence. Daniel heard them, but his expression did not change. His boots clicked steadily against the glowing floor. His eyes scanned the shadows, not the jewels. Still, the rumors grew. A guard from another wing spoke as Daniel walked by. You know, human. One gem from that table could buy you a planet. One stone, and no one would stop you. Daniel turned his head slowly, his voice calm but sharp. And what happens to a man who betrays his duty? The alien guard sneered. He becomes rich enough to forget duty. But Daniel did not answer. He walked on, his silence heavier than anger. Hidden behind her veil of crystal, Arathia's eyes glowed. Her claws tightened. Why did he not react? Why did he not break? She had seen warriors fall for less. Was he pretending? Was he waiting for the perfect moment to seize everything at once? That night, Arathia increased the pressure. She ordered her servants to carry trays of glowing gems past Daniel, deliberately letting a few stones roll onto the floor in front of him. The gems pulsed with inner fire, humming softly, as if calling his name. Daniel bent down. For a moment, he held the largest one in his palm. It was smooth, warm, alive with power. Arathia's heart raced in the shadows. This is it. He cannot resist this. But Daniel simply placed the gem back on the tray and said, You dropped something. Be careful. These things are dangerous if they fall into the wrong hands. The servant froze, eyes wide. Dangerous? He did not see them as treasures. He saw them as weapons. Arathia leaned back, unsettled. This was not the reaction she had expected. Still, suspicion burned inside her. She thought, if he is truly loyal, then I will push him harder. I will make the temptation impossible to resist. And so she devised another plan. The next evening, a false thief crept into the palace halls. An alien servant disguised in black armor carrying a sack, slipping quietly toward the treasure tables. It was all arranged by Arathia. She wanted to see what Daniel would do. If he saw another stealing, would he join in? Would he take his share? Would his human heart finally reveal its greed? The palace lights flickered. The shadow of the thief stretched long across the floor. Daniel spotted him instantly. Without hesitation, he drew his blade. Stop! His voice thundered through the empty hall. The thief froze. Then he bolted toward the treasures, but Daniel moved like a storm. He blocked the intruder's path, his blade gleaming under the glowing crystals. The clash was quick, sharp, filled with sparks. The false thief tried to grab a handful of jewels, but Daniel slammed him against the pedestal, snarling, "Not while I stand here." The treasures remained untouched. The intruder, bruised and beaten, fled into the shadows. And Daniel? He returned the artifacts to their places one by one, with the care of a guardian, not a thief. Lady Arathia watched. Everything. Her eyes narrowed, her breath sharp. He had fought to protect the very treasure she had used to test him. Was it real? Was it an act? Why would a man with nothing defend riches that could make him everything? The mistress found herself shaken, though she would never admit it aloud. The human had resisted whispers. He had resisted rumors. He had even resisted a staged theft. And still he did not falter. But Arathia was not finished. The test would go deeper. She would strip away the watchers, strip away the lies, strip away everything, until only his true heart remained, and only then would she discover what humanity truly was. The suspicion. The mistress watches closer. Lady Arathia did not sleep that night. The image of her human guard standing over the treasures, blade in hand, echoed in her mind like a song she could not silence. He had resisted whispers, resisted rumors, even defended the jewels from a staged thief. But the mistress's heart was not at peace. She did not trust easily. Centuries of betrayal had carved suspicion into her very soul. She whispered to herself, "No creature is without weakness. Every oath can be broken, every vow has a price. Perhaps he has only hidden his true desire too well." So she decided to test him once more, this time with eyes sharper than ever. Arathia ordered the palace to be emptied. No servants, no guards, not even the silent drones. Only Daniel would remain, guarding the Hall of Treasures. But she was there too, hidden in ways even he could not imagine. From the ceiling, living crystals bent light around her form, cloaking her in shifting shadows. Tiny spy creatures crawled along the walls, their many eyes reflecting every flicker of movement. Even the air itself was her weapon. Sensitive sensors recorded every breath, every heartbeat. Daniel walked the hall again, his steps calm, his posture steady. But this time, he looked heavier. His shoulders carried the weight of loneliness. No voices, no allies, just the silent glow of riches calling from every corner. The jewels seemed brighter that night. The gold shone warmer. The artifacts hummed like faint music. Arathia had ordered the treasures to be adjusted, illusions to make them more tempting, more alive, as if whispering his name. At one point, Daniel stopped in front of a tall pedestal where a crystal sphere rested, glowing softly like a captured star. He stared at it for a long moment. His hand rose slowly, fingers brushing the air above the sphere. Arathia leaned forward in the darkness, her pulse quickening. "Yes. Now, show me what you really are." But Daniel only sighed, lowering his hand. "Strange thing," he muttered softly, "to guard what you'll never own." He turned his back to the sphere and continued his patrol. Arathia's claws dug into her palms. His restraint unsettled her more than betrayal ever could. Betrayal she understood. Resisting, truly resisting, felt unnatural, almost dangerous. Still, her suspicion would not rest. She needed proof beyond doubt. So she created one last deception. That night, she commanded a servant to sneak into Daniel's chamber while he rested. The servant left a small chest beside his bed. Inside, golden coins and jewels enough to bribe armies. No orders, no witnesses, only temptation waiting in the quiet hours of sleep. Arathia watched through hidden eyes as Daniel entered his quarters. He froze when he saw the chest. Slowly, he knelt beside it, opening the lid. The glow of treasure filled the room, painting his face in golden light. Arathia held her breath. Daniel stared at the riches for a long while. His jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. Then, with a grunt, he shut the lid and dragged the chest outside, into the corridor. He left it there as if it were trash. "Wrong room," he muttered. "Not mine." Arathia's heart skipped. He had rejected even that. But still, she was not finished. The mistress herself appeared before him the next morning. Draped in flowing robes, her eyes sharp as blades, she stood at the end of the corridor. The treasures glittered between them, like fire. "You've been tested," she said, her voice like thunder hidden under silk. "And yet you resist. Why?" Daniel bowed his head. "Because I am not here for your gold." Her gaze pierced him. "Then what are you here for?" His voice was steady. "I swore an oath to protect, to stand guard, nothing more." Arathia's suspicion sharpened. Was this loyalty? Or another mask? She stepped closer, her shadow falling across the treasures. Even if no one sees? Even if no one cares? Daniel looked her in the eyes. "Especially then. Loyalty means nothing if it only exists under watchful eyes." The hall fell silent. For a long moment, neither spoke. The jewels gleamed. The palace air held its breath. Finally, Lady Arathia turned away, her expression unreadable. But inside, her heart was restless. This human had not only resisted temptation, he had spoken words that cut deeper than any blade. Words that challenged everything she believed about loyalty, power, and control. Yet even now doubt clung to her. Perhaps he was clever. Perhaps he knew she was always watching. Perhaps he was playing the longest game of all. So, in the shadows of her mind, she whispered, "The real test is yet to come." The revelation, choice without witness. The palace had grown too quiet. Lady Arathia had tested her human guard with whispers, with rumors, with false thieves, with gifts left at his door. Each time, he had turned away. Each time, he had chosen duty. Yet the mistress's heart refused to rest. Suspicion was part of her blood. She had lived centuries in a galaxy where betrayal was as common as breathing. No warrior, no servant, no mercenary had ever resisted temptation for long. There had to be a crack in him somewhere. She only had to find it. So she designed a final trial, one no eye but hers would witness. Deep inside the palace, beyond the jewel halls and golden corridors, there lay a chamber sealed for centuries. Inside rested an artifact older than the mistress herself. It was a relic from the lost age, a crystal sphere containing a fragment of living energy, so rare, so powerful, it was said one who held it could buy loyalty from entire empires. To most, it was beyond value. To Arathia, it was the perfect test. She ordered it placed on a lone pedestal in the treasure hall. But this time, she deactivated every watcher. The drones went silent. The spy creatures crawled back into the walls. Even the shifting glass that had hidden her before now turned to stone. Daniel would believe he was completely alone. Arathia herself retreated to a secret chamber beneath the floor, where she could observe through the faint hum of the relic itself. But he would not know. The human entered the hall unaware of the plan. His steps echoed louder than usual in the empty chamber. The treasures glittered as always, but at the center, the sphere pulsed with living light, as though it were breathing. Daniel slowed, his eyes fixed on the relic. His face, always steady, shifted ever so slightly. Wonder, curiosity, perhaps temptation. Arathia leaned forward in her hidden chamber, her claws tightening. Yes, this is the moment. Let the mask fall. Daniel approached the pedestal. The glow of the sphere painted his skin in silver and gold. He reached out. His fingers hovered over the relic. The energy inside seemed to call him, whispering through the air. Take me, claim me. No one will know. For the first time, Arathia saw hesitation. His breath quickened, his hand trembled, her heart raced. Centuries of suspicion whispered, now. Now he will fall. But then, Daniel closed his eyes. His hand dropped. And, in a low, steady voice, he said, not mine to touch. The words echoed through the empty hall. He turned away, leaving the relic untouched, his boots carrying him back to his patrol as if nothing had happened. Arathia's chest tightened. She had expected greed. She had expected betrayal. She had expected weakness. Instead, she had seen something terrifying, conviction, and yet her test was not over. She sent a final temptation. A shadow slipped into the hall, another staged thief cloaked in black, but this one different. He carried no sack, no weapon, only words. He spoke softly as he approached Daniel. Human, do you not see? You guard treasures you'll never own. One touch, one secret pocket, and you could live as a king. Why protect what will never belong to you? Daniel's blade flashed before the words had even settled. The tip rested against the thief's throat. His voice was iron. Because it's not mine, and because loyalty means nothing if it bends for gold. The thief froze, then retreated. The hall fell silent once more. Arathia trembled in the shadows. She had heard those words before, in fragments, in oaths sworn by soldiers who later broke them. But Daniel spoke them not as a shield, not as a mask, but as truth. She felt it in her bones, and for the first time in centuries the mistress was afraid, not of betrayal, not of greed, but of something far more dangerous, an oath so unbreakable it defied her understanding of power. She whispered into the dark, "What are you, human? What world creates such a heart?" For the first time her test had not given her answers. It had given her questions. The transformation. His reaction changed everything. The palace was still when dawn came. The treasures glowed faintly, untouched, as if waiting for judgment. Lady Arathia stepped out from the shadows at last. She had watched every moment. She had laid every trap. She had expected betrayal, greed, or even hesitation strong enough to break him. But none of it came. The human guard stood tall in the center of the hall, his blade resting at his side, his eyes calm. He had no idea that every jewel, every rumor, every whisper of gold had been placed there by the mistress herself. He had simply done his duty night after night, as if loyalty itself were more valuable than any fortune. Arathia's footsteps rang sharp against the crystal floor. The treasures shimmered around her like a sea of fire. She stopped in front of Daniel, her gaze cold, unreadable. "Do you know," she said slowly, "that everything you faced was my doing?" Daniel blinked, confusion flickering across his face. "Your doing, my lady?" The whispers, the thief, the chest of gold, even the relic. Her voice cut through the silence. "It was all a test of you." The hall trembled with her words. The treasures seemed to glow brighter, as if they too waited for his reaction. Daniel bowed his head. "Then I hope I did not fail you." Arathia's eyes narrowed. "Fail me? You resisted everything. But why? Why would a human, who could take all of this and vanish into the stars, remain loyal? Tell me, Daniel, was it fear of punishment? Was it calculation? Or are you simply too foolish to know opportunity when it shines before you?" For a moment, silence. Then Daniel raised his head and his voice was steady. "I did not guard for gold. I did not guard for reward. I guarded because I swore to protect. Oaths are not chains to break when no one watches. They are promises, made once, kept always." His words struck like thunder in the stillness. Arathia froze. She had expected excuses, clever words, maybe even anger. But what he gave her was something she could not understand. An oath that lived inside him like fire, burning brighter than any jewel. Her claws trembled at her side. For the first time, she felt something she had not felt in centuries: respect and fear. The palace doors opened behind her. Members of her council stepped in, summoned by her command. They saw Daniel standing among treasures untouched and the mistress herself facing him. Whispers spread quickly. He resisted? One counselor gasped. No one resists, another muttered. Arathia raised her hand, silencing them. Then, in a voice that echoed across the chamber, she declared, "This human has passed every trial. He is not my guard. He is my most trusted protector. From this day, no jewel shines brighter than his loyalty." Gasps filled the hall. The council bowed their heads, and the news spread through the palace like wildfire. Soon it would reach the entire empire. A story began to take shape, of a human who stood among treasures worth galaxies and chose honor instead. Other rulers would hear. Other empires would question. The galaxy, so used to betrayal and greed, would now whisper of a species that valued something greater than gold. Daniel, however, simply bowed. "I am only doing what I promised." But those words, they struck harder than any weapon. Arathia dismissed her counsel, leaving only herself and the human. For a long time she studied him, her eyes softer than they had ever been. "Do you realize what you've done?" she asked. Daniel frowned. "I only kept my oath." She shook her head. "No. You have changed how I see your kind, and perhaps how the galaxy will see them too." For the first time, Lady Arathia felt the foundations of her belief crack. For centuries, she had ruled through fear, through wealth, through control. But here stood a man who could not be bought, who could not be broken, who had no crown yet held more power than any emperor. She whispered almost to herself, "What are humans truly? Monsters of greed, or keepers of promises stronger than empires?" Daniel gave no answer. He only resumed his patrol, blade at his side, walking calmly through the hall as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. In that moment, Lady Arathia knew the truth. Her test had failed, but her heart had been transformed. And across the stars, whispers would grow. Whispers of the human guard who turned down treasures, who chose loyalty over riches, and who left even an alien mistress trembling with respect, and so a legend was born.